Hello, welcome back, and thank you for joining me today. We're going to have one of these conversations that this course is so excellent at prompting about something that we deep down know. We just know it to be true, but we don't want to believe it. We don't want it to be true, but we know it is true. And because we don't want it to be true, we try to hide from it and we go off and we do our thing in this weird and wild and up and down game thing experience that we call life. We do life with all its vicissitudes, which are many, everywhere, all its ups and downs, all of it. And this course is really good at bringing up these conversations. And it's really good at, hey, here's some food for thought kind of moments. It is from these food for thought kind of moments that we're, well, in a strange place a lot of the time in our minds. We're attracted to it and we recognize the need to have these conversations. And at the same time, we don't want to have them at all. I'm sure that you can relate to this. If not today, then at some point in the past, you've had this thought. You'll likely have it again in the future. It's just part of the spiritual path. And this course is uncompromising. It says what it says, and it means exactly what it means. It's uncompromising because we need it. So, the idea that we deep down know but we don't want it to be true. We recognize that, in fact, it is true, but we don't want it to be true. So we want to pretend otherwise, make believe. This idea is that the body is not your home, which you know. You deep down know this. You do recognize it. I insist that you do because you're watching this video. Quite simply, let's back up. You're interested in this thing that we call spirituality. This is something that I say all the time. We all need to hear it all the time. Because in the stubbornness and the just ruthlessness, really, of our conditioning, we run off and we don't want to believe it. The body's not your home and it's not who you are. You know this, or you wouldn't be interested in spirituality. Backing all the way up, at some point, you started out or you became interested in spirituality. You have heard the call of the Holy Spirit, our inner teacher, to awaken, and you answered it. You began to explore. You began to seek. We're quite fond of the word seeking and the term seeker here on the spiritual path. You began to do that. And perhaps you stuck with the tradition, the religious or spiritual tradition that you were raised with. And perhaps you took a look at that and thought, that really doesn't do it for me. I'm going to look over here and over here. And yeah, whatever it is, we all recognize deep down that there's more to it than simply this. And are we ever correct about that? Way more to it. It's not our home. And we all know it. What happens here as we do life is we want to pretend that that's not true. We endow this with our own identity. We identify as a physical body, an individual physical body. And we esteem this with everything we've got. We pour our mind, we think, into it. We attempt to hide away in it, walling ourselves off from the truth and the reality of love, which doesn't recognize any separation at all. And this is a separation device. It's being used right now for the Holy Spirit's purposes, and I invite you to do the same thing in whatever outward form that takes. That actually does not matter. You will be directed, you will be called to use this thing, organism, whatever you want to actually call it, for the purposes of communicating love, for the purposes of extending love. You could choose to do that. That's what's going on with this thing right here. And again, your own particular personal directive can look very different than mine. I'm to broadcast. You may have a completely different directive or suggestion from our inner teacher. Understand one thing, though, the content of these directives is all the same. Share the love of the Holy Spirit with your brother. Extend love. Look past, beyond all of these apparent differences to the truth of what is. And know, you know this, or you wouldn't be on the spiritual path. And you most definitely, certainly would not be interested in A Course in Miracles, which is, as we say, uncompromising, and it points right to it with no diversions and messing around. We say that's what we want. You're still here. Excellent. Must be what you really want. Welcome. Let's continue. What we've made of this is, well, a lot of suffering. It's an isolated speck of darkness where we think we can hide from God. If you want a more thorough treatment of that idea, I would invite you to take a look at the very last video, the most recent published video here, where we talk about that in greater detail. That we think that we're hiding, we think we're walling ourselves off from love, but that's impossible. So here, as we think we're a body, we're all over the place. We're up and down. It is like a roller coaster ride with a lot of steep descents, and then a climb, and then a descent, and then you're spinning around and around and around. Let's hope we don't get motion sick, right? It's what it's like when we think we're an ego, when we identify with it and take this device, which could be used to share the love of the Holy Spirit with people, with our brother, with every living thing. Could be used for that purpose, but we use it otherwise to maintain and glorify and worship the idea of separation. The body, though we may love and esteem it and worship it and study it, etc., 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 as intricate and complex as it appears to be, the body will never be the Holy Spirit's temple. That's impossible. The Holy Spirit looks right past it, beyond it, doesn't see all of our separation psychodrama and conflict and war. Looks right past it to the truth of what is. we're invited to let the Holy Spirit guide us so that we may do the exact same thing. So, as we mentioned at the outset, we want this to be real, but we know it's not. So, what kind of a dilemma does that produce for us? Well, it's a considerable one, isn't it? And that's an understatement. I mean, there are moments where it's a complete, hot, destructive, chaotic mess. Is that what we really want? Well, there's a part of us that kind of does want it. As long as we maintain this separation idea, as long as we want this to be our concrete reality, what's concrete about it? It changes from moment to moment. Its cells slough off and die, and we hope they're regenerated until the point where they're no longer being regenerated. What happens then? Hmm. Yeah. And this course, should you allow it to, will open your eyes. This feels threatening. No point in dancing around that one. This is part of studying this course. It's the ego that's threatened. It's the ego that wants you to continue to believe that the body is you, that the body is your home. And you recognize that it's not, and we're being told repeatedly here in the course that it's not, which we know. It's simply a recognition of something that we've always known. Yet we can deny it all we want, and we do it. So if you're listening to this, watching this, thinking, there's no way, this course is nuts, this pixelated image on my screen, which is really just that, electronic dots, that's nuts too. Great, no problem. I mean, expect that on the path. It's always the ego that resists. And when we side with it, we're in this conflicted state of mind where we recognize that this is not our home, but we want it to be. So we study it and we worship it and we spend lots and lots of our time and our thought process on it. And I mean, nothing against, having fun and, a nice dance party. Yeah. A great workout, whatever. Just live life, but you don't have to take it to be your concrete reality because it's not, and you know it's not. So we're invited to, as much as we're able to do right now today, accept this and listen to the guidance of our inner teacher. Accept and allow, accept and allow. Those words are very prominent in spirituality, no matter the tradition. This is why we think things are one way and we want them to be that way, but we really don't want them to be that way because there's nothing but pain and suffering. We recognize it's really not that way, but we really want it to be that way. So no wonder we're exhausted. Drama intentional, right? So the body seems to be powerful, that we've given it every shred of meaning that it has for us. And we engage in one painful relationship, one unholy relationship after another, where we see ourselves as separate. We see our brother's interests as separate from our own, as opposed to a holy relationship where we see his interests as our own because they are. So we see separation, we run off, we do life, we do our thing, which we've been conditioned to do. So Let's keep doing it, even though it makes us miserable. Want to get off the roller coaster? Excellent. I mean, you're still watching, which tells me unequivocally that you do. So let's continue to allow the Holy Spirit to guide us. So these unholy instants, these separation ideas that appear to last a lifetime, decades, you know, whatever it looks like, all of this is frail. Chapter 20, Section 6, paragraph 9, has some very beautiful language that I want to wrap this conversation up with. The unholy instant where this body appears to dominate and run the show is as frail as a snowflake, but without its loveliness. Oh, huh. That's attention grabbing. It's as frail as a snowflake, but without its loveliness. The snowflakes are beautiful. I mean, even though in our middle age, we may have to put on our reading glasses in order to see them. Case in point. Does this last forever? No, right? Snowflakes are intricate, they're delicate, they each seem dazzlingly beautiful, and they're gone in just a fraction of a second. Against the warmth of your hand, the palm of your hand, they don't last at all. Neither does this, and this is without the snowflake's intricacy and loveliness. We don't have to use it as a place to wall ourselves off and hide from love. You don't have to do that. You could choose another way. In fact, there's only one other choice you could make, and that's to allow the Holy Spirit to guide you, to choose love instead of fear, to choose forgiveness instead of condemnation and blame, to choose light instead of darkness, a conscious, active choice in the mind right now, in the present moment, which we're invited to do right now, again, in this present moment, which extends. It simply is present. We have the opportunity right now to choose. Chose poorly before? Great, no problem. Choose yet again. Choose again. We're invited to do this, and we can do this. Think you can't? You can, most definitely. And you're invited to, on behalf of all of us, every living thing. Thank you. Whoever said this was dull. It's certainly not dull to question the very foundations of everything that you now believe, which is what we're invited to do. I mean, Jesus just comes right out and invites us to do that in the workbook specifically. So we're invited to do just that. Expect resistance. Also know that you have certain guidance on the path in your inner teacher. Call it whatever you want to call it. There's also guidance available apparently here in this thing that we call the world. This is one place where you're free to ask questions and encouraged, in fact, to do that. There's no such thing on the spiritual path as a dumb question. I mean, I know we hear that all the time in life, but it's true, isn't it? And there's no such thing. If you don't know the answer and you would like clarification, I invite you to ask. The questions that may feel to you beginner-ish are often the best questions to ask. In fact, I've seen that much more often than not, far more on the spiritual path, because there are people that have been studying this material for years and years who need to hear the answer to this question again. And that may be the day that the light comes on for them. We don't know. It's a beautiful way to share with everyone around the world because you never know who may need to hear the answer. So you are most definitely invited to ask questions if you have them. And if you have not yet subscribed, you're invited to do that as well. And the prompt is right here in the corner of your screen. So go ahead and click that icon. It's actually been on here in the form of a red and white arrow. And yeah, click it. And at the end, an end screen is going to come up, and there's going to be an icon of the pixelated image on your screen's face from a picture wearing a white shirt and stuff. You can click that too. Same deal. Subscribe, join us, and we will see you again next time. Okay. Thank you.